I don't think people realize how complicated it is to work on people initiatives. Communication, even the amount of time that goes into a good communication plan, it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of input to get it right. You can't just change direction and expect 2,000 people to follow you the next day.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the HR Leaders Podcast. In today's episode, I'm joined by Natalie Porter, who's the Head of Culture and Employee Experience at NTT DATA UK. During the episode, Natalie shares how NTT Data are navigating culture change during an M&A and the importance of frequent, transparent communication during uncertain times. As always, before we jump into the video, make sure you hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and follow on your favorite podcast platform. With that being said, let's jump in. Natalie, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, nice to see you in the flesh. How have things been?
Busy, interesting, fun, traumatic, tiring, exciting, all of the above.
Well, you made it here. I know you barely made it here to the studio, but you made it here at least.
Yeah, I have to admit, I live in a London and I work in a London, so I don't get out very often.
Outskirts of
out of the mile. We did a little excursion on the way. That was fun.
Before we jump in, tell everyone a little more about you personally and your journey to where we are now.
So for me, I think when I look back on my career, I feel pretty lucky. It's evolved naturally. I started off, if you can't tell, in Australia from this accent. Worked all over Australia, most of the major cities and states, America. I worked in Qatar, all over the UK. In all of those areas, focusing on people. So started off in org development, learning and development, moved into change management, and now with a real focus on culture and employee experience. Yeah. Because I think, which is an evolution again of those kinds of roles, working externally as a consultant and now focused internally over the last 2 years on integration of two major big global companies, moving into a permanent role, people and employee experience.
For the audience, so you worked internally as a consultant for NTT beforehand?
Yes.
Selling the products and solutions or delivering?
So delivering. So as a change consultant, as part of like digital transformation or smarter working, quite a range of things.
And now you're doing that internally?
Yes.
Interesting. What do you think are the things that you learned, lessons that you've learned from doing that outside helping you in this new role internally?
The main thing is to listen for me. So I think, people are extremely complex. We can't make assumptions about our business, our people are thinking, experiencing, and it's constantly changing. So, I can take what I learned from working on clients and how hard that can be and, what you put yourself through to deliver. And I can help people who are trying to support those people in the business understand that. And I think that's why I keep going out and coming back in, because that constantly changes.
I think so many leaders that I've had on the show that have had a similar journey, and it's so valuable that you have those different points of view. Yeah. And kind of how they intersect, and you really understand the business because you've delivered it.
Well, and I found recently with a lot of the projects we've been doing about, we did a lot of research about employee experience and the culture in the organization while we're doing the integration. And, we're really, we've changed our whole structure, all of our processes, all of our IT, all of our delivery mechanisms. And what's been useful is I've been able to push back and go, that won't work. These people live this experience. If you do that, they will just reject it. Or they will love you and eat everything up that you're doing right now. So that, I hope, has been helpful for the team.
Was this a new role that was created specifically to help with that integration?
It was kind of born out of integration.
Born out of it, okay.
I think. We're a mid-sized company in the UK and Ireland, about 2,000 people, and companies are starting to realise that culture will happen anyway, but actually if you want to take hold of it, drive it, you can create a much better culture and the word I will keep saying today, experience for the people. So as part of the integration, we just wanted to see what the real world was, what was the daily experience of the people. And so we did a lot of research. We did competitor analysis. We developed personas. We did lots of surveys, one-to-one. We did like an idea-a-thon, really to establish a baseline for what people were thinking, how they were feeling, what they kind of thought of the future. And then we said, okay, now we've got all the information, we're going to have to do something about it. So they went, let's have a team. And
Oh, okay. So that's when it was born.
Yeah.
So what were the main things that you heard back and that you learned from the research that you're now working on?
There were two things. Of course, because we had an integration, there were a lot of people who'd been through, a lot of waiting around key decisions. Integrations are hard on people,
Yep.
The constant change, the changing of teams and managers, and, do I want to be part of that organization? I've heard this. So there was a lot of that. We heard people were a little bit scared.
The uncertainty.
Yeah, the uncertainty brings fear for some people. Not me, love it, which is why I do my job, I guess.
Yeah.
And the other thing was, because we had changed processes and the organization structure and systems, we kind of needed to remind ourselves what we wanted to be as an organization. So we've done a lot of work, and now that we're starting to, the dust is settling, and we're 2 months away from the final part of the integration, the final systems, we're really starting to focus on what we think of as important. So we're often told that as an organization, people like working with us because we're like real people, which I don't.
It's a compliment. So you're like, how do I take this?
Yeah, like we just become part of the team.
Yeah.
Actually, it's our secret sources.
So you're thinking like, how do we define that? How do we?
Yeah, how do we not lose that? People just really like the people that they're working with, and they feel that no matter what they want to get involved with, if they just step forward and want to have a go, that they can. We're focusing on the hearts and minds, which is my favorite bit.
Have you kind of come up with a new purpose statement or mission values?
Just before COVID and before we started to integrate, we did a lot of work on what we sort of see as the purpose in our organization. So creating exceptional together is something that we all worked on. And, I thought that was a good summary of how we want to work together. We want to create, we want to, be innovative and exciting, and the work needs to be at a great level, which is the exceptional. And together, we're all about, long-term relationships, supporting each other, being a strong team. And then that's supported by our values, which are, clients first, teamwork, and foresight.
So just a few things you're working on.
I know. I'm like, give me more. The thing that I'm loving is that there is the appetite for it.
Oh, there is. Okay, great.
The leadership are keen to make things better. The people are excited about actually moving on and just being able to do their day job without integration, and doing some of the more exciting things that come with, culture.
Yeah. This all sounds amazing, but I'm sure, it's not easy for people listening. What sort of the biggest challenges that you've had to overcome?
A big thing for me is, working in a technology organization, advisory tech, is that I don't think people realize how complicated it is to work on people initiatives. Communication, even the amount of time that goes into a good communication plan or, communication strategy, or actually getting cohesion between all the initiatives that help you deliver on a culture. It takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of input to get it right. You can't just change direction and expect 2,000 people to follow you the next day.
Yeah.
Because you're not only trying to not control, but guide what's happening in your organization, but you've got all the external forces that come into play as well. At the moment, things like remote working, I think we're still trying to pivot with all the changes.
Figure out what works for your organization.
Yeah. The world is changing, and we're trying to fit in there.
It's interesting actually where you say that, right? Because not only are you dealing with the internal forces, you're also having to balance the external forces, which are out of your control,
Yes.
as well. So it's not just dealing with the change in integration; it's also managing the global economic challenges as well.
Well, and last year we had a massive growth spurt. We were recruiting a lot of people. This year, it's, the way the world is kind of changed. People are saying, are we going to continue doing that? Or given the change, what's the appetite? If the market is changing, it's not as hot as it was. What does that mean for people wanting to stay, go, attrition? Are people more likely to stay longer in organizations now that, the market isn't there? Which would be great. We're definitely looking at ways we can get people to stay longer? How can we develop them?
What are some of the projects you're working on right now that you're really excited about?
One thing that we're doing that is a little bit different is, I mean, like a lot of companies now, we actually have a huge focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. We hired someone in specifically to look at it, but the best thing is that she actually sits on our leadership team, so reports directly into our CEO. There is quite a spotlight on it, much more so on the inclusion side, and I think that links a lot to what I'm doing. For me, coming to work, being who you are, feeling comfortable, and actually the embracing that diversity for me is what makes organizations shine, especially I think in a tech organization. You're like, we are the future, we have to be dynamic, and we have to reflect the communities that we are part of.
And tech's struggled a lot in that space, especially with diversity.
Yes, and my whole history, I've worked in banking, finance, trading, all of those industries have really struggled. Taking care of the pipeline, getting people in is one thing, but making sure that when they come in that they don't feel, different, because actually we're all different.
Yeah.
So, and that's one thing I like about my company is I think of myself as a little bit different at times, and that's why I've stayed. I've stayed the longest probably in this job than I have in any other job, because
you felt like you could be yourself.
Yeah.
So how are you addressing that in a practical sense? Like, what are some specific things that you're doing?
So a lot of what we're doing in our organization is making sure that we've got the foundations right. So we're relooking at all of our policies. We're relooking at the life cycle of an employee, but also how do we work with clients? So how do we deliver operationally, make sure that, first of all, how we operate is clear, inclusive, and that people feel they fit in that sense. I mean, we also have, a lot of networks which are all community driven. So, we have LGBT plus, we have a culture and ethnicity network, and we have lots of other networks that they're all driven and supported by the business, but driven by individuals who just really care and excited. And we're constantly connecting in with other like charities and organizations externally. To first of all, just educate as well. So a lot of people, especially with our neurodiversity work, a lot of people just didn't really understand what, that meant. So first of all, education, then involvement, understanding what true allyship is, and then an organization that makes people feel safe.
I think it's also as well, like, it's important to, in some companies, like, I feel like people don't feel like DEI is for them.
Yeah.
And understanding is for everyone, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, we feel connected to things we know and are interested in. So I naturally would, maybe join a women's business network, which we have a network for that. But often when I talk to other people in the organization, they're like, oh, I thought it would just be for women. We're like, no, it's all about getting people to understand the topic and, what's on the agenda and stuff like that. And then it's like, what do they choose? Because there's a lot of topics that they can get interested in, and, they're just trying to do their day job. I
think one of the misconceptions when it comes to the mergers is that this is like a 4 or 5 month project. You're like, yeah, because you said to me, it's been 3 years on this. What advice would you give to leaders that perhaps never been on a journey like that of both, but also personally, because I'm sure there's a lot of stress and challenges as well. What advice would you give to them?
It's more complex than you know. Sorry. So this week we've been going over cutover, which is, the IT term for all of the different dates and things that need to happen so we can switch off systems and switch on to systems. And the complexity around it is huge, because you're talking about finance, you're talking about people, you're talking about operations. All of these things have to match up. Your processes have to change to reflect. And then you've got all the work happening behind the scenes just to make those new systems work. And I think the more you can understand your target operating model, your future target operating model, your current, and then really working through the detail and the journeys to get there, to match that gap, that's the best thing you can do.
Yeah, because every single one of the things that you mentioned impacts the employee experience.
Yes.
If I've been working on a particular CRM
Yeah.
for the last 5 years, and now I'm having to move over to this new
Yeah.
system. That's going to affect my daily,
Yeah.
my experience.
And who really wants to do like compliance training or process training? I mean,
Yeah.
surely some people, but most people are like, I just want to do a good job for my client.
What are you most excited about moving forward? Obviously, you're kind of 3 years in. You said you're close to the end of the. Is it? I don't know, when is an end of the transformation?
Well, no, and this is it, right? It's like, I was writing some comms this morning, and I'm like, this is the end of a long journey. I had to say, but it's the start of a new.
There's still another journey.
Journey.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like where I love like digital transformation, and getting people into new systems and processes is great and very important. I'm super excited about the work that we're going to do around our values and getting people excited about creating exceptional together. Starting to bring back some of the things that we removed during COVID as well. Like next year, maybe going to have a big family picnic. I'm looking forward to connecting more and making people connect in our organization.
That's kind of one of the things that we lost over the last couple of years, right? That glue, that connective tissue. That technology can only do so much. You mentioned the picnic we used to do. You just reminded me. We need to do this actually. I'm going to write a note after this. One of the things we used to do is once every quarter, like everyone in the team would bring in sort of food that represents their culture.
Oh yes, nice.
And we'd have a big feast, and you try different foods and drinks and even desserts you'd never heard of, and it really created this real great bond. And I used to do that a lot with the team. We haven't done that since the pandemic, and we just lost that.
Well, we want to talk to each other. We just don't always know what about. And I think some of those events give you knowledge about each other beyond that project you're working on. So that's and there's always so much importance put around things like policy, guidelines, processes. And yes, I'm working on them, and they're very important, and, mapping the journeys. The other side for me is actually some of the things that people think is the fluff, which actually is the thing that really bonds people. Like Culture and Ethnicity Network did something similar, and I loved it. And I can talk to people about different things, and I've also started cooking different things in my life because of that. Yeah.
It's like interesting how soft skills have now become, as Josh Burson calls it, the power skills.
Yeah.
So those are the things those are the things that in the past you saw as fluff. Yeah. We still use words like fluff and describe it, right? I don't even like the word soft skills now, because it also has a sort of, it's been tainted as well. But those are the things that really matter, that really make the difference.
When they always have.
Yeah. It's just come full circle again.
We didn't talk about it like that. The meeting before the meeting and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Even in the old days,
the
way people behaved.
Yeah.
You might have got away with a few things, but how you treated people, how you worked was always important. It's now you're just allowed to talk about it.
I think that's a good place to end it, actually, because we kind of went full circle from the beginning, because a lot of what we just described is really part of this journey that you've been on, and all the different elements, the ingredients, and to make up this role that you're in now. And appreciate you coming on, sharing your journey, and
wish me luck.
I wish we will wish you luck and on the new journey, because it's never ending, that you're going to be on. We'll do a part 2. You can come back and give us.
Come back, I'll tell you how well it went.
Where you went wrong.
Surely not. I can tell you all about my new job, which I'm already working part of it, but I'm so excited.
Yeah, amazing. I wish you all the best until next week.
Thank you.